Mr. Chairman, we thank the Presidency for promptly convening the meeting in connection with the Israeli strike on Qatar at the request of Algeria, supported by Pakistan, Somalia, France and the United Kingdom. We are grateful to Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations Rosemary DiCarlo for the briefing. We have carefully studied the position of the Qatari side, as set out in the letter distributed on September 9th. We are confident that detailed assessments of what happened will be given by the Prime Minister and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Qatar. We welcome your participation in the meeting, Mr. Prime Minister, as well as the participation of Jordanian Foreign Minister Ayman Safadi and Dr. Anwar Gargash, as well as other participants. Mr. Chairman, the Russian Federation strongly condemns the Israeli attack on a residential complex in Doha on September 9th, which targeted senior members of the leadership of the Palestinian Hamas movement. As a result of this blatant attack, according to preliminary information, 6 people were killed, including an employee of the Ministry of Internal Affairs of Qatar, and Emirati nationals were injured. Of extreme concern is the fact that the Israeli Air Force attacked a quarter of the Qatari capital where foreign embassies are located. For example, the Russian diplomatic mission is located 600 meters from the site of the attack, residential buildings, busy highways, as well as several schools and kindergartens. In other words, the victims of this massive airstrike, which was carried out in the middle of the working day at 3:45 p.m. local time, could have been a much larger number of innocent people, including our fellow diplomats, their wives and children. A gross violation of the sovereignty of the state, as well as the creation of a serious threat to the safety of civilians, cannot have any justification. We fully share the UN Secretary General's assessment of the inadmissibility of Israeli attacks on Qatar, which constitute an encroachment on the territorial integrity of an independent state. We share the Secretary General's words about Qatar's positive role in its quest to end the war in the Gaza Strip, which has been going on for almost 2 years. It is particularly cynical that Doha, as one of the key mediators between the Palestinians and Israelis, has been working tirelessly over the past months to end the bloodshed in Gaza and free the detainees. The Hamas leadership, according to incoming information, was ready to conclude such agreements, and it was at the time of the September 9th rocket attack that the movement's leadership discussed in Doha another proposal by us, Special Envoy Stephen Witkoff. Thus, the blow was inflicted not only on Qatar as a sovereign state, and not involved in the Arab-Israeli conflict, but also on the efforts of the mediators as a whole, on the very possibility of a diplomatic solution to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. It is obvious that the Israeli attack will have the most serious consequences, both for the already terrible situation in Gaza and for the security of the vast region of the Middle East. Mr. Chairman, unfortunately, what happened 2 days ago was not an accident, but a natural consequence of the absolute impunity of West Jerusalem, which repeatedly tests the limits of what is permissible and discovers new frontiers for itself, using the international diplomatic cover from Washington. Moreover, the implementation of arbitrary Israeli military actions is disguised under slogans about imaginary threats to the security of the Jewish state from the so-called Seven Fronts. We all remember very well how on the night of July 31, 2024, Ismail Haniyeh, the then head of the Hamas political bureau, was killed in Tehran. At that time, the leader of the Palestinian movement was in the Islamic Republic in an official invitation to attend the inauguration ceremony of the elected president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Masoud Pezeshkian. Then the political assassination was committed with the same purpose, to inflict a serious blow to the indirect negotiations between Hamas and Israel aimed at a ceasefire in the Gaza Strip. The strike on Qatar, where a large American military base is located, has become a fundamentally new round of regional escalation. If the Israelis are ready to eliminate their political opponents in a state that is very close to their main ally, what stops them from similar actions in any other capital of the world? Why, in principle, conduct scrupulous negotiations on a ceasefire and the release of hostages, if you can just put a bullet in your interlocutor's forehead? Mr. Chairman, the vicious practice of liquidating prominent political and military figures is not just a crime. This is a violation of the principles of civilized interaction between states, which creates risks of uncontrolled escalation. We call on West Jerusalem to abandon reckless aggressive actions that provoke a spiral of violence in the region. All council members should send a similar signal. I think it is already obvious to everyone that Washington's declared policy of so-called quiet diplomacy is not only not yielding results, but is also fraught with new loud explosions in an extremely heated atmosphere. But it is precisely by referring to her that the American delegation has been blocking any efforts at the Security Council for almost 2 years. It is difficult to say what kind of thunder should break out in order for Washington to finally realize that multilateral diplomacy within the Council is not just not an obstacle, but the only and extremely important tool necessary in the current conditions in order to reverse the situation on the ground. In this regard, we support the intention of the dozens of non-permanent Council members to promote a draft Security Council resolution on the situation in Gaza, with an emphasis on demanding that Israel lift all restrictions on the supply of humanitarian aid to the enclave. We expect that this product will include a call for a ceasefire, without which it is simply impossible to remedy the humanitarian situation in Gaza. We are convinced that the adoption of the resolution will be an important and effective measure towards alleviating the suffering of the Palestinian people. Mr. Chairman, in conclusion, we would like to once again express our solidarity with the leadership and people of Qatar, who have come under fire from the militant Israeli military and political cabinet. Detailed consolidated Russian-Arab assessments of this arbitrary military action and the events in the Middle East in general were made today in Sochi, following the results of the Russia Gulf Cooperation Council ministerial meeting. The Security Council also adopted a press statement in connection with the strikes in Doha. Unfortunately, it does not reach the point where everything necessary is reflected in it. Not all things are called by their proper names. Thank you for your attention.